go ahead and get started. This is kind of the Feel the Love webinar today, or our live presentation, our podcast, whatever term you want to apply. But it's Nikki with Dead Ringers, and we're here for our fifth installment of Cringeworthy Calls, and we've got lots of material. we aren't running out of material to share, and so it's been our mission at Dead Ringers. We are a secret shopper and call analysis firm that basically has been rooted in the death care profession. But if there's any profession that needs to be empathetic, I'm going to talk about that today, it really carries over to any industry that's dealing with customers, and specifically those on the phone. So we'll get into our cringeworthy calls here today. And as always, we have kind of the countdown, the top three, as we move through the cringeworthy calls. So, Dead Ringers, and our goal is to make sure that our clients are really focused on good phone etiquette and that it's not killing the business. I start off with this quote every single time because it's so important to me. And the gal, Nancy Friedman, she's the telephone doctor. She's my idol, and I know I mentioned her over and over. But she says, if there's a phone on anyone's desk, anyone, they should be trained to use it. And this quote was probably from years ago, so I've added in, or if the phone's in their pocket. If you're answering customer calls from a smartphone or a mobile device, know how to use that as well. So I've added on to her famous quote, and I like folks to think about their place of business, or if you have folks working remotely, if you were to shut your eyes, where are actual phone, where's the equipment throughout your organization, and who has the ability to pick up that phone. So if you're only training a couple of people, we are not having the reach that you need to have good phone experiences with the folks calling in. Okay, so our last webinar, literally a month ago, we talked about attitude, and the theme was how rude. And we again had plenty of calls to work from in our database, where the professional on the other end of the phone was really had an attitude, needed an adjustment. So again, that frame of mind as you go into a call is so important, and how we sound on the phone, even though we may not think we're portraying an attitude, it's really important to listen to those things. So some of the things that we shared, it's important to know that if you're dealing with someone on the phone, that you have your undivided attention to that person. And it's very rude if, let's say, you're having a secondary conversation as a part of that. So one of the clips that we played, the phone clip, was a gal answering her phone while she was on the phone with someone else, so her business line and her personal phone, and we got to hear the entire conversation. So it's important that we focus on one mouth and not having two conversations. Next, again, is that tone of voice. So I know that I hate hearing my recorded voice, but I think sometimes listening to the way that you sound is really important. And if you're projecting a tone, which I get on my husband about that, and he's like, I wasn't being mean, but again, tone is so important. And then if you do have the attitude, just drop it. I know we all have bad days, and if you have the luxury of maybe stepping away from the phone for a day, if you're having that bad mood really does project through the phone line. So try to put yourself in a good frame of mind as you're answering those calls. And kind of leading into where we're going today is focusing on the concept of empathy. And I think now more than ever, empathy is so important as we're dealing with customers on the phone. No matter, let's say, if you're a real estate agent, if you work for a hotel, there are so many moving parts these days with kind of the lockdown and the way we're having to move about through business, whether you're working from home, those types of things. The phone has become so much more important. So empathy, especially if there's a problem with the person on the other end of the phone, is so important. And empathy is not something you teach, is it?
Hi, I'm Nancy Friedman, the telephone doctor. I know exactly how you feel. Well, That could be one of the most useless phrases in customer service. Example, my father passed away many years ago, and I'm sitting in the funeral home. A girlfriend of mine comes up, taps me on the shoulder, and says, "I'm so sorry, Nancy. I know exactly how you feel." I looked at her and I said, "Myrna, your father's sitting right over there. How can you know exactly how I feel?" It rubbed me the wrong way. And since then, I found that that phrase rubs a lot of people the wrong way. When you haven't experienced what the other person has been through, it's not effective. And even if you have been through a similar situation, normally two people don't have the same feelings about the situation. Let's say you see someone with a broken arm. "Oh, I know exactly how you feel." Well, if you've never had a broken arm, it's a useless statement, isn't it?
Mhm.
You can say, "Ouch, that's gotta hurt," or "My goodness, I cannot imagine the pain you must have." Cable companies tend to use that phrase a lot. Well, we'd much rather hear, "Wow, that's not fun. Let's get it fixed," than to tell me, "I know exactly how you feel." So refrain from using "I know exactly how you feel" as a sympathetic statement. It's a big frustration to people. No two people can have the same feelings about the same thing. I'm Nancy Friedman, the telephone doctor. Thank you for watching.
Isn't she awesome? I just love her. She's my idol. I think I already mentioned that. So she probably thinks I stalk her anyway. Um, but she'd mentioned, telling someone and saying, "I know exactly how you feel." She is so right. And especially to those of you that in the death care profession, even though we may have served hundreds of families and we may feel we know what folks are going through, we can't say that because everyone is different. No two people can have the same experience and think of it in the same way. So I really like her concept, and I think it's a real empathetic statement. And let's work on this together. Wow, this is a problem. Let's work on it together instead of having the attitude. I think building in uh, those empathetic type statements really create a customer experience. um, and that being said, we're going to move into our next podcast, webinars, live Facebook feeds, whatever we want to call them. I'll focus in on one of those for the next call, our next call. But there's a concept called the 6 pillars of customer experience, and this is kind of a global strategy that we've learned a little bit about. And I think that being said, we hear that word a lot, creating an experience. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in creating the experience that it's what are we doing to create the basics here? So there are 6 key areas. One is creating personalization. And I think we all know that it's all about me. What can you do to make me feel like your only customer? Having integrity, that's so important. Setting expectations, creating resolution. And I think sometimes when I've been in a bad experience where I've had something really go wrong, let's say with it's a computer, you know, a problem with a bill that I might have. Sometimes if the customer service professional can overcome the problem, or maybe even if they can't, the way that they're working through resolution, and if they show that they care, I start spreading the good news about them. So it's not necessarily maybe a problem's not solved, but if you are empathetic with your customers, that will kind of create the more feel the love feeling that you might have. Time and effort. Um, this is our next topic for next month. And oh, time and effort, you place those calls, and I know you've done it, and they ask for your account number and you key it in. You get 6 menu items, and you can't get to that person. So it's having a live person to talk to, but having to wait 15 minutes to get to it. It's that whole red tape. And what I find is that those are reactive things that we're doing for folks that are calling in. What can we do that we don't have to actually physically talk to someone? Talk about reverse psychology there. I don't know, maybe I'm not focusing that in the right manner, but we're gonna have a lot of fun with that one. In a former life, I was a customer service kind of process improvement person in an organization, and I would view things as in a process map from start to finish. And I think what we would call cutting out the waste in those processes were so important to create more of a customer experience versus what we would call a customer compromise. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that one. And then empathy. So we're making kind of a bottoms up approach with this. These are the 6 pillars that we've learned a lot about, but I think the most important one, specifically from an urgent perspective, a lot of the calls that I'm hearing, there's total lack of empathy. And it's in some ways really disheartening. And I'm going to be on a mission to make sure that organizations realize that empathy is so important, any kind of organization. And that being said, we'll hear some really cringeworthy calls around the lack of empathy today. I'm going to try to pepper in some good empathy statements. My favorite was already said by Nancy Friedman. Let's get to work on this. Let's work on this problem together. And again, creating a kind of a teamwork feel with folks that you're on the phone with, I think can go a long way. So empathy, let's make empathy great again. And I don't know where it went. And there's so many sayings, you know, the golden rule, do unto others as you would do unto you, all those kinds of things. And empathy within an organization has to come from the top. We create a framework, and a lot of that empathy even is with each other. You don't have empathy with your own team, your own workmates, your own organization. That empathy is definitely not going to portray in the phone conversations you're having. So we're taking those 6 pillars of customer excellence and narrowing them down into the phone arena. So that's what's going to really, I think, set this apart, in that let's focus on each of these areas. When the phone rings, are we thinking of these 6 pillars? Okay. So of our thousands of calls in our database, we track everything, we measure everything. And if you don't measure it, don't do it. It's kind of a concept that I've considered. And you have to have the data to back up your concepts, back up your advice. So of all of the calls that we've made, empathy is one that we actually use as an indicator, an objective indicator. And of the folks who are answering the phones, and as we rate the calls, 34% actually express empathy and attempt to connect with the caller on a personal level. Now, the bulk of these calls are funeral home calls. Some of them are pet loss calls. And if there's a profession that needs to be empathetic, it's this one. And last week, I celebrated 31 years in servicing the death care profession. And I've seen those changes as technologies become more remote, as we focus more on computers, texting, all of those kinds of things. That human element is getting lost even in that profession. And so let's think of that as kind of the top pillar. We're starting from the bottom with the 6 pillars, because I think it's so important. If you don't have empathy, none of the other things matter in my mind. So focusing on that empathy first. And then from a broad global perspective, 59% of consumers felt that companies had lost that touch of the human element with creating a customer experience. And that's totally true if you're calling in and you're getting that automated, the virtual assistant. I don't know if you guys text or anything online. Give me a real person to talk with. Give me the human to help me with the problem. And forcing me to do all the work for you, whether it's visit our website. I did visit your website. I didn't get it resolved. That's why I'm calling you. We're making it, we're not being empathetic with our callers and making them jump through all of these hoops. I mentioned compromises. We're creating customer compromises throughout the entire process. So it's time to feel the love again, get back to empathy. So we'll have 3 kind of sections with some fun video peppered throughout the cringeworthy calls today, but we'll have 3 key areas that we'll focus on.
Service restored today.
Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
Yes, I just said I would like service restored today.
Understandable. But is there anything else I can assist you with today?
Yes, I'd like to restore my service today.
I do apologize for the deficiency. Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
Yes, you can restore my service.
Yeah, I do apologize for the deficiency. Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
That's almost passive aggressive. That's another thing that kind of the last call, how rude. He's obviously trained, you know, at the end of a call, and you guys have heard this too, you get something resolved or not, as this example, what else can I help you with today? And we see Zach's extension there. He didn't address the main problem, and it was probably the way he was trained. You know, this is something we can't handle today. I have no power over it. If Zach would just connect on a human level here and say, I'm sorry, this is a more, I'm just trying to assume here, it's a deeper problem that I can't get to today. And the frustration level continues to grow. Just do what I asked you to do, or at least let's work together on this to see if we might come to resolution. So Zach needs an empathy lesson, right? So our countdown today is showing, do we even care? And if that's the way you feel about business, dealing with customers, maybe it's time you step away. There's a brutal response for you. If you don't even care, it's not maybe worth your time. You're probably losing customers left and right. So do you even care?
Oh, okay. So what all's involved in that?
I don't have the time for this now.
So this was a call we placed into a business. We were asking questions, you know, regarding some pricing, I think, and this is the response we got. At first I thought, well, did we call the wrong number here? Did we get like just a random guy? And no, we called back and it was an actual place of business. And I simply can't believe the response and the total lack of respect here. I know it was a young gal calling. It doesn't matter who's calling. And those folks that we partner with in Dead Ringers, even if you may know that we're secret shopping you, it doesn't matter because you never know. You should always give your best performance. So showing that you care, that's the heart of empathy. So again, monitoring your tone. I don't have time for this today, okay? And having the basic etiquette, being thankful, those empathy statements, we really are thankful that you called us today. What can I do to help you? I'm gonna work on this problem. And, you know, hold please, we had that call, you know, that particular discussion. So monitoring your tone and thinking of the basic etiquette that's required to show that you care. And acknowledging there's an issue. And Zach, in our last call that we heard there, he knows there's an issue, but he's not acknowledging it. I'm sorry for, what did he say? Not discrepancy. I'm trying to think of the word he said. Difficulties, you know, sorry you're having this. Well, no, you're not. You're not being empathetic in helping me deal with the issue. So acknowledging that something went wrong. We're not perfect. And trying to have that perfection, I think, and almost it's not a contest. I had a client say that to me. Why do we feel that sometimes it's a contest when our clients call in to say, I know more than you know. I have the power here. So building a teamwork setting, even with your clients, I think is really important. And when you do that, you connect on a human level with folks that are calling into your organization.
Say again, you're breaking up.
Oh, that's nice. This isn't my real voice. I'm making myself sound much more pleasant than I really am.
So we had some funny things there that I call that the passive aggressive kind of the, oh, nice. You don't mean that. And, you know, I think I even have heard folks like this last gal, you know, it's a mixture of nastiness and politeness. So those things really do carry through the phone, and it's a complete lack of empathy. So number 2 is respect. So we've had showing the love, showing that you care, respecting the people that call in. And I know sometimes you may have difficult customers, you may get yelled at, and that's a part of the job. I think sometimes I've had those calls where I want to run into the ladies' room and cry in my Kleenex, you know, and but we have to respect everyone that calls in. So going to show you a snippet here where there's kind of a total lack of respect.
Is there a possibility that you could email me these pricing?
You'll find them on our website.
Okay.
Stomach's growling.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck with
So the gentleman there says, can I get your prices? They're on our website. It's like, why are you bugging me with this today? This call just talk about cringeworthy. And then there's this pause where like, okay. Then he's like, good luck with that. How rude. So really no lack of empathy here. I also think that there's a little bit of lazy here too. So not making the effort is a lack of empathy in my mind. So no actual connection at all. Almost, what can I do to not make you do business with me today? If I'm shopping for a product and I get this kind of response, do you think I'm going to buy from them? So again, having the respect, it's almost as if she was bothering him. I think I mentioned that. So respect. Here's that term I used earlier. Follow the golden rule. Treat others how you would like to be treated. And make them feel special because they are. Folks who are calling in, and it's just human nature, you know, my problem is the only problem that you should be focused on then. And if you have empathy as a part of your mantra within your organization, you do make folks feel special. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the scripted things that we're supposed to do. Customer service, and in some of my experiences actually being a part of a customer service team, everything has to be black and white. And that's just not how life is anymore. The worst thing that you can say, well, that's our policy. I don't care about your darn policy. You know, just certain things like that. It's not about you. I'm going to get into that one here in a minute. So making folks feel special. And there's actually things out there, companies that are focusing specifically on what they're calling empathy customer service. So if you were to Google or do hashtag empathy customer service, it's actual thing. You can partner with people to focus on creating empathy within your organization. Now, I've heard that mentioned as kind of a soft skill, things that aren't necessarily that you can be trained to. And I agree with that at some point, but kind of leading into
yes, I know how long you've been holding, and I don't care.
Sorry, I'll play that again.
Yes, I know how long you've been holding, and I don't care.
So kind of getting back to you know, the I don't care is, are you really focusing on the empathy there in your organization? And this kind of attitude, I've seen it before. So this again has to come from the top. So that being said, taking a walk in their shoes. And for my folks that are from the death care profession, when folks call in, we think we know everything that our families go through, and we do. We know the phases of grief. We know all of those particular things, but I think sometimes we get jaded. We're getting a lot of calls in, and empathy recognizes that a loss is occurring, and we're not hearing that. I mentioned 34%, I think, at the beginning of our discussion here, actually acknowledge and are empathetic with the folks calling in. So it's really important that when someone calls in, we see things from their perspective. So, you know, the next time the phone rings, and it doesn't matter what business you're in, think phone perspective. I need to consider what perspective these folks are coming in. And really, anger is a part of grief. So you may have folks that are angry calling in, and that anger just gets worse. Escalates. There it is. If you're dealing with them in a non-empathetic perspective.
Hi, I was wondering if I could speak to the owner.
I can help you.
Is the owner there?
Sorry?
Is the owner there?
No, why do you say that?
I was just wondering. I was looking to get a memorial.
Oh, you wanted to speak to the gentleman, is that it?
Yes.
Oh, he's just occupied at the moment.
Okay, and what's his name?
His name is Matt.
Matt? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call back then.
He's got a funeral this afternoon. Did you want him to give you a shout once he gets back, or?
What time will he be there till?
I'm not sure. It's a funeral. I have no idea.
Okay. She was almost, she didn't trust the customer. Did you kind of get that feeling there too? Why do you want to talk to him? And so, that being said, it's not all about you. So the person on the other end of the phone at the business was like, why do you want to do that? It's putting it through her own filter instead of, asking why she's calling. I can help you. Well, you don't know that you can help her. So, it's not all about you. So taking a minute and stepping back and taking a walk in their shoes and having patience. I don't know when he'll be back. That tone really comes across and like, I don't have time for you. So again, we talked about making people feel special. I wouldn't call back to that business. I don't know about you guys, but being treated like that, especially within the death care profession, it makes me sad, really does. So, love this quote. The highest form of knowledge is empathy. And I want give you all a little assignment and take a look at maybe reading their, I actually got my Good Housekeeping today, and there's literally a whole article and section about people reviving empathy within their communities. It's everywhere right now, and I wonder why. So we need to focus on the importance of empathy. I think it does show intelligence when you're able to get out of your own head and understand what other folks are going through and having the caring to do it. So let's make empathy great again. 1, show you freaking care, show the love. Okay. 2 is the Aretha Franklin method. RESPCT. I know, that was terrible. And, our very last thing is just, showing the love, taking a walk in someone else's shoes. So this has been an interesting way to go through things today. And it's a little, I didn't mean to be preachy or get on my soapbox, but I think if we don't have these things within our organization, all of the other training, all of the other things that I've shared with you over the last 5 cringeworthy calls, it's lacking in that because it all feeds together through empathy. I also challenge you to maybe take a few minutes and write down what you feel would be empathetic statements. I mentioned, let's work on this. We're going to get this solved for you. Steve, thanks for calling today. Using names. These are something else that we've talked about, and connecting on a human level, even asking for their name. That's another thing I spend a lot of time with as far as training and consulting with our clients. So let's do what we can to make empathy a part of our business. Okay. So we're at, I think, 30 minutes. I'm getting so good at this. So we're going to talk about that red tape, and this is going to be so fun. There are recordings that we have. There's literally one that we have that were 9 menu items, and I want folks to understand what that process looks like. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and there'll be some really good solutions around how you can take the red tape out of dealing with customers. And I guess the correct way to say that is, are your customers having to deal with you, and not in spending money, but this is an ordeal calling in. It makes me think back to my mom, and I'm going to list the name. It's Comcast, and we featured them in our last webinar about rudeness, in that she's like, I literally want to cry because I have to call them, and it was all a bill resolution thing. And when you feel so, like it creates a physical response for you to have a call into a business, that a lot of that might have to do with red tape and some of the things that we talked about today through empathy. So our next webinar is April Fool's Day. That'll be a fun tie-in too. It's 2:00 Eastern time, and you can register at deadringers.co /cringeworthy. And as always, we welcome your feedback. If there's certain topics or things that have worked for you, we want to share the love in that way too. We try to be empathetic in that we don't know everything. So we want to take your knowledge and share it with the world. And our email address is info@deadringers.co. We're also on Facebook, so feel free to post there if you have some good ideas. Our phone number is listed there, 844-767-1313. So appreciate your time today. I know that these virtual events can be painful at times, but my goal is to make them irreverent, funny, and useful. So hope to see you back here next month on April 1st. Everyone have a great weekend. We're moving into the end of the first quarter. Can't believe it. First quarter of 2021. So let's do what we can to start the second quarter off with some really good empathy techniques within your firms. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.